When you hit 55 years old, the way you think about money needs to change. The way you've handled your money to this point in time needs to change drastically compared to what you're doing as you near retirement and ultimately enter retirement. Your financial concerns change wildly. This is video 1 in a series on how whole life insurance helps solve different financial concerns for people 55 and older. And in this video, we're going to be talking about concern number 1 is running out of money. Let's get into it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. That way you're notified every time I launch a new video. Let's get into it. Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180. In this video, we're talking about the number 1 concern that is facing people as they near retirement and then ultimately enter their retirement years, and that is ultimately running out of money. There's been studies that show it's something like 70% of people say they fear running out of money more than they fear death. And now, if that's not a telling statistic and telling poll, I don't know what is. So in this video, I want to talk about why that is so relevant and ultimately why it matters. And I want to kind of set the stage for the videos that are going to be coming in this series. If you're watching this in the masterclass, that's phenomenal. You'll get them in sequential order. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see them as they come out on the channel here. Now, what I want to say is that the first issue that people have is, and I got it written a little backwards, but I want to go through this, is the idea of longevity risk. Now, you're concerned about running out of money, but there are different risks that increase our chances of running out of money. And what we have to do with our money to be able to galvanize ourselves and insulate ourselves from those risks is understand the different financial tools and products that we have at our disposal to insulate us from those risks, right? And so longevity risk is what I call an amplifier of risk, because it takes all the other risks that we have and it amplifies them, it accentuates them, because the longer we live, the more likely it is that we're gonna have problems, the more likely it is that we're gonna live through different boom bust cycles, that we're gonna experience maybe 2 or 3 recessions during our retirement years. Think about it this way. If you live until you're 95 years old or 100 years old and you have great longevity, that means you're likely going to be in retirement for 35 years. That's 50%. That's probably going to match almost the amount of time that you worked productively earning income, right? You got to make sure all your money lasts that long, and you're probably going to see some really, really challenging economic times. So how are you going to weather that storm? And that's where the concept of the sequence of return risk comes in, right? If you retire and you have enough money and you feel like you're really good and everything is modeled out properly, but you retired, let's say you retired in 2007 and you felt like you had enough money, and then 2008 happened and boom, 40% of your portfolio is gone overnight in the S&P 500 because it was invested conservatively, right? All of a sudden, I can't tell you how many people, when I first entered the business in 2009, I can't tell you how many people I met that were going back to work simply because they tried to retire, and because of not understanding how to manage their money, not understanding how to take the sequence of return risk off the table, or to at least mitigate it a little bit, they were exposed and they had to go back to work, and it had a drastic negative impact in their life, right? And so the whole concept of Monte Carlo simulations comes into play, because these are the simulations that financial planners utilize to figure out, like, how much money do you need and what are the likelihoods that you are going to run out of money in retirement with assumed rates of return. Now, there's a thing called the 4% rule that is kind of what most people lean on and say, this is what you need to earn this is what you need to have for a lump sum of money. You need, let's say it's $2 million. They say you could have 4% of that as an annual income, and you won't run, you have a really high success chance of living the rest of your life without running out of money, right? So $2 million gets you $80,000 a year of income. That's not getting most people that I think that have the ability to save $2 million. It's not getting them the income they need to maintain their standard of living, and that is a problem, right? So now where whole life insurance comes into play is that it can help mitigate a lot of these risks. And I think it's important to understand that it's going to get you a decent rate of return. It's going to have the guarantees. It's going to have the liquidity. As you build up it, especially if you start, let's say right when you're 55, it can be what we call a volatility buffer, right? So what we talk about, especially if you're starting at 55 and older, I'm gonna speak to the demographic that I'm making this video for right now. You cannot look at whole life insurance as your sole asset. I think a lot of people online, on the internet right now, are trying to convince people that you can utilize index universal life or whole life insurance as the mainstream of tax-free income in retirement. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's not a good strategy no matter what. Even if you start from start when you're 30 years old, it's not a good strategy in my opinion. Secondly, if you're starting when you're 55, you don't have enough time for these policies to build up to be your main stream of income, even if I did agree with that concept. It just doesn't work. So what does that look like for you? That looks like you putting yourself in a situation where you have some money in a whole life insurance account, and that acts as a volatility buffer that supports all of your other assets. Some of my other videos, I talk about the fact that whole life insurance is the BASF of the financial industry. It doesn't make the investments you make, it makes the investments you make better, right? It's kind of like BASF. We don't make the products you buy, we make the products you buy better, back from the 90s. So with whole life insurance, it's not the investment, it's just gonna galvanize your investment portfolio. And here's what I mean, it can help eliminate things like the sequence of return risk. It can help, and when we eliminate the sequence of return risk or reduce the sequence of return risk, it makes longevity risk less risky, right? Because our money is more likely to go further from us. So if we can have a pool of money that the worst thing, well, let me put it this way. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go over here real quick and I wanna do this one illustration and I wanna make this pretty quick here. So what I wanna do here is I wanna show this and I wanna say, all right, let's say you had $1 million, okay? And you retired in 2007. Now in 2007, that $1 million, you felt good because you said, I need $40,000 out of this account. I feel good, that feels phenomenal. And then 2008 happened and this is following the 4% rule and that's great. Now 2008 happened and that $1 million goes down to, let's call it, let's say it lost 35%. That's splitting the difference. Some people say 40, some say 30, I'll call it 35. And you got now $650,000. $650,000. Well, here's the problem. You still need your $40,000 of income because your need for that money didn't change just because the economy sucks, right? And so what happens is, now the question is, what percentage of 650,000 is 40,000? Let me do the math here. So we're talking almost 6.2%, right? So that's over a 50% increase. 50% increase compared to the 4% rule. And if you have to keep taking and distributing 40,000 out of 650 the way that you were before, you're gonna run out of money. The odds of this imploding are extremely high. So what we wanna do is it's not that you wanna eliminate this or replace this. If you have this money, you wanna make sure that you have enough money in a side fund, and this is where whole life insurance can come into play. It can operate as a side fund that's growing on a guaranteed basis that you have tax-free access to, that you can utilize as a volatility buffer. That way, we all know in 2008, the market recovered. The worst thing you can do is liquidate a negatively performing asset. By having money in whole life insurance, you don't want to lean on it as your mainstream of income in retirement, but to lean on it in the years where the rest of your portfolio is struggling. So you can use your whole life insurance policy to have enough money in there so you can maybe access the $40,000 that you need for income in this example 5 or 6 times throughout your retirement. That way you can really weather those negative storms. That's gonna help reduce your longevity risk. That's gonna help reduce your sequence of return risk. And that's gonna allow the Monte Carlo simulations to play out in a much more accurate, effective way. It's just gonna create leverage for you. That's why I always say, properly designed whole life insurance policy is going to help you in every phase of life. Now we're talking 55 plus here. The best time to start, if you're 55 plus, is obviously as soon as possible. It's when you're 55. Give it time to grow, give it time to build liquidity, give it time to get through the fee stage, There are different ways. The good news is the older you get, the more cash you can put in. The MEC rules kind of work in your favor. But the bottom line is that you want to make sure you get started as soon as possible, that we can build up the capital in the policy to operate as a volatility buffer to help eliminate a lot of these risks. So if you have any questions, make sure you go to the next video when I release it. But if you're on YouTube here, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell that way you're notified every time I launch a new video. Till next time, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon.